Yeah, it's going down. All right, this is day one Wednesday before Worlds. Going to getting everything ready. I'm going to try to record one last podcast before I go out. And I'm pretty much mostly packed. Just need to pack up my camera and hope, beyond hope, that my battery for my camera is not FUBAR. All right, Wednesday, waiting for the ride. All right, it's Worlds 2020. I've been in here for an hour, and this line is long. So it goes all the way back to the pass. I thought I saw Samurai Jack in, maybe Boba Fett back in there, somewhere back over there. So it's all good. We got a lot of returning faces.
What's up, man?
Hey, cool people, former champions, old faces. All the old faces is here. Old faces here, and somewhat semi-old faces, and old new faces that have got purple hair right now.
I dig the purple hair.
It's okay. It's all right. It stands out. Everyone has this phase. It's okay. Everyone has their punk phase. All right, it's day one.
Edwards with nipple. It was supposed to be for like 10 years.
Yeah.
You see him right through the shirt.
So Scott, are you?
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. Are you? What events are you doing today?
Right now, I think I do the major one that a lot of people are in. I know it's been talked about a lot, but my first big event is Line. I don't know if you guys have been playing in this. Oh, you have. Yeah, you've been doing really well.
I did well in Line. I was at the front. I won Line.
Yeah, so I didn't win Line off the bat. I'm hoping to eventually win Line, but I think that we might be able to. Right now, I think we're literally standing in line for another hour, maybe an hour.
At least 30 minutes. At least 30 minutes.
We went from there.
Back, it's the salty line.
The salty.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say that we're just playing one event and then done. The slop is done. That's it.
Yeah. So once you defeat Line, you have defeated functionally the final boss on
90% of what we're doing today.
On day one.
Yeah.
Day one.
Day line. What good call.
Matt, are you also trying to defeat Line as well?
Yeah, I'm pissed that we got here and the sloppers ran out, and we waited in line for over an hour and a half. And there's gonna be people playing in Team Worlds tomorrow. There's gonna be people playing in World Singles Saturday, and they can't move any slop over for today when most everybody's here and wants to play it.
It is good though.
Yep. Silver Age, yes. All right. With that being said, we're done for right now. Okay, so this is the Exa Storage Storyline OP event. You can see the maps are pretty much the same. There are 3 rounds. You get month 1, month 2, and month 3. And there's a lot of cool stuff they're playing through what appears to be month 1 right now. So, I see some interesting tarot cards. So, all right. I see Rock Slide being a common theme of cool stuff. Hold it. All right, it's Team Worlds. I like to point out. We got tons of cool new teams. We got tons of great established teams, and this is the event where I say we come together to play together, and we have fun together. There's tons of teams that I just respect here that have had a great history of playing, and I want to just give a shout out to all these other folks that are here today. So anyway, Team Worlds, it's the quiet before the storm. So all right, it is the finals of singles. I got Lucas Van Hollen versus Bruno from Coffee and Clicks. It's a podcast finals. Azareth was also on Clickstop, and I missed the other guy. On Phoenix Nest, it was Lucas Van Hollen, Joe Safa, and Kevin, 605 himself. So, yeah, we're going to find out who wins here in a few moves. It's a tight game.
Get to play in the Battle Royal.
All right, so currently we are looking at singles day one. For the update, we had Phoenix Nest team in the finals versus Clickstoff. Clickstoff won. Shout outs to them. Big props. Shout out to my boy Lucas and also Kevin and Joe. They were in the finals. This is Lucas Van Hollen. You should already know him. He's more popular than me now. That's important. Anyway, we got a lot of good teams. We have a lot of people with buys on the first round. The biggest issue I see right now with the buys is that we have over 100 people with buys. We have 60 people playing, 68 people playing. We're seeing pretty much Apocalypse, X-Men, Thanos. I saw one Loki team. So we're not like, the meta is sort of down to about 3 different teams. So it's interesting. All right, that is it. I will have another update soon. Hello. I have a wonderful interviewee today. State your name for the fine audience.
Scott Johnson.
And what team are you on?
I'm on Team Earthbound and Down.
Yes, I've seen him with jerseys yesterday, so I know he's on the team. There you go. So what is your current team today?
Two Dooms, swapping. Dr. Thing to start with to mess with the swap lines. I have Exodus, who can one-shot Sakaar and Iron Man with the right tarot card on the map. I have Franklin and Mad Jim Jaspers.
Okay, see, again, I've told people, Exodus, mind control, silliness is coming. It's here now. Someone played it. All right, so how is your team doing so far?
I'm 2-2.
Okay.
With 885 points.
Yes. You come here for alternative news. I'm just kidding. That's alternative. We're legit. So, Real news first. So how did you come to that conclusion to play Exodus?
The tarot card helped me break it down because I'm like, it gets past the leadership, it gets past stop clicks, it gets past the danger room pieces, and it got past Sakaar and Iron Man. I was really worried about Sakaar and Iron Man. So I wanted to just take out all the Sakaar and Iron Man I could find. Because I feel like he's like going to be out here more than anything else.
In these streets, yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, is there anything that, like, right now you're just like, man, I don't want to deal with all that?
I'm scared to death of Sky Tyrant, and he has eaten me up twice. Mad Jim Jaspers, I can hold up in the wall for a few turns, but if I don't make my willpowers, I can't make the barriers.
Yeah.
So it's just until the iceberg melts, and then Sky Tyrant comes and eats his cookies.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come around and get some more teams. I'd like to thank you very much for being on the show. I'm going to try to get some more teams and ideas out here at Worlds 2022.
Thanks, Mr.
All right. I got a couple of people that I used to play with. Go ahead, tell everybody your name and your team.
Kalen, Dice Addicts. Dexter, Dice Addicts.
Dice Addicts from Dice Addiction. Yes, even in Worlds, I have still been promoting Dice Addiction. James and Chip, you owe me a booster. Anyway, a booster of my choice. Booster of my choice. Anyway, going back, what'd you play for singles?
I played Thanos.
You played Thanos?
Not typical build though. I did not play Star Sapphire.
Hold up, wait. Wait, they're announcing oh shit. Hey! Oh, I didn't think I was gonna get this.
Oscar Galando.
Congratulations!
Yes. Thank you for embodying fantastic sportsmanship in our game.
Yay! Yay!
We'll be back with the top 32.
All right. So what was different about your Thanos seat?
So I cut Star Sapphire for the Time Platform and Illusion Generator. Time Platform going on Thanos, Illusion Generator going on Molecule Man, so it gives him a rollout, at least when the Mind Control card comes up.
Okay, that's good. All right, what did you play?
I played Scarlet Witch at full points. Also not a traditional team, multiplayer at half, but I played her at full because of the long dial and the power cosmic.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you both the same question. What was the most interesting matchup today? Win or lose, what was the most interesting matchup today?
Interesting. I would say probably the one I won. I mean, like, that was my favorite one. But I played some Apocalypse teams, a Thanos team, and Secret Six that could outwit. So that one was really rough. The outwit Stockflips, that was a meta guess that didn't go my way. But yeah, I played Fantastic Four, and it was a really fun game. The guy had a Black Leopard, which is a piece I like a lot, so it was good.
All right, what was your most interesting match today?
I'd probably have to say round 3. It's going to sound weird, but it was a Thanos mirror. Played against Emily Rowett. Great match, fantastic sportsmanship. It was the second Thanos mirror of the day. Second time I got taken to negative zone.
Negative zone, yeah.
And it's rough. It hurts when you can't do anything. It was, very nickel and dime game. There wasn't much of a lead until the last few turns when she was able to pick off a couple of pieces. Was probably 2 turns from a 0-0 loss.
Yeah. All right, so here's my next issue or question for you. How do you all feel about the scoring? Like, it seems like top tables, low points, bottom tables have a lot higher points, but if you're at lower tables and low points, you almost feel like you have, like, I get the feeling from people, you don't feel like you have a chance.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a crawl. I mean, because it's just, you have low points, especially starting out, having to play and not having a 300-point lead from the bye. It was definitely tough. It definitely felt like bottom of the barrel.
All right.
It definitely feels like that. I think you want to reward the individuals who do have a bye, but 300 points seemed a little steep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think 150 would have been a little better, but they didn't ask me. So.
Okay. All right. Any shout outs y'all have before we go?
Dice Addiction at home, and the Texas group, Earthbound and Clicksman, great groups, and of course, get to see you this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's been great seeing everybody, seeing some people who I've heard of through the podcast but I've never seen. So it's a little bit of a minor starstruck, hearing people I listen to a lot. But shout out to Dice Addicts and Chip and all them, and Smetchrat too in Colorado. Doing it big out there.
Okay. My boy Hobbit was out there with the Smetchrat crew. So yeah. So again, a little thing. Also, Chip, where's the freaking Dice Dragon? Why didn't you pay for
His name is Tank.
Why didn't you? Why didn't Tank? Why isn't Tank on the shirt? You got to get branded. This is Phoenix Nest branding. All right. Anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna see how this goes. I like to thank you. Good to see the boys back in town, sort of thing. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Right before the event, Simeon let me borrow 2 tarot cards. Didn't have to. Was able to complete the deck. Otherwise, I would not have found the Queen of Wands or the 6 of Pentacles.
All right, there you go. Shout out to Simeon's too.
It's not an alphabetical order either.
What's your record? Oh, yeah, it's 2 and 4.
Yeah, I see you. 73, Brian.
I had 1,000.
Oh, I cannot zoom in and see. All right, we have a good top 32 going on here. This is about to pop off on Saturday. This is real interesting. They're parading out to take the picture. A couple of quick things that are going on just to sort of be mindful of. Shout outs to the research assistants that we have here at Starting Over Podcast. Lucas Van Hollen allowed me to borrow some of the chainsaw chats to do some calculations. Using them as my 2 research assistants, we did notice a couple of things. So 300 buys were given out. With 300-point buys given out, we ended up with a very weird problem. That problem is as follows. And again, let me take this back because I know I could be the negative Nancy, and I want to be more objective on this because this does matter. Because I don't know where to take it. I don't know what position I should hold. So this is an open conversation. 300 buys are given. If you look at a low-scoring meta, 300-point buys pretty much ensured that 93% of top 32, so I think there were only 2 people where we could sort of confirm that they didn't have rock points or buys from national championships. That ended up allowing for a lot of what would appear to be average scoring games. If the buys were taken away, a good chunk of top 32 probably once you get around the 14-point mark, are completely gone. And if you took, like, again, 300-point buys from the rest of the field, you're going to lose a good number of those names. And I'm not saying this being salty at number 36 place. I could have broke, Jesus or whatever. But the issue is, if you didn't have a buy, did you waste your time? So I'm going to probably come back to some big guys. Our top 32. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the audio-only section of today's show, in which I give maybe you some of my more in-depth thoughts that weren't on camera for Worlds this year. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So the first thing that I am going to point out was the event was a good event for WizKids' first time back after the pandemic. Okay. I am willing to cut a lot of slack. Yes, I am the hardcore tyrant sometimes. But at least I'm able to be realistic on, was the event great? It was a 7.9 out of 10 for me. Okay? On terms of what WizKids did. All right? There's the little things that were messed up. I gotta be honest. It wasn't within their control. The Warp World selling out. The Wonder Woman selling out. There's a few others that were sold out that I'm just like, nothing I could do. Okay, nothing they can do. So, So I'm sitting here, just in all honesty, I'm not mad. So there is that. The next thing that I will point out that I had to come back and look at was the buy situation. And the buy situation, after the video that was presented, I had a lot of conversations. I've had conversations with various players of different skill levels, interactions, and shout outs to Barnstable. Because Barnstable is the one that mainly encouraged me to go down this route in thinking. So shout out to him, because he's at the point, he says, like, look, man, it's neither good nor bad. Let's figure this out so we can make a better analysis on what to do for running tournaments. And I was just like, yeah, that's a good point. I also spent a good amount of time talking to Adam Friedman. And Adam Friedman spends a lot of time playing competitive Magic online and in person. And so he knows about big events. He knows about match scoring and other things. So I give a big shout out to him as well. So let's get into the 300-point buy and what does it mean? The first issue that I look at the 300-point buy is it was really cheap. It was 25 rock points. Now, I know for some folks, 25 rock points ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. For others, after looking at that list, they barely had enough points. They were definitely playing pauper on that one, okay? But this leads me to an interesting perspective, which is what would have happened if the buy was 100 points. And looking at the list, a good chunk of individuals would not have had a buy. At that point, I think top 32 from 18 on down, or some of our 5-1s on down, It's a different story because they had to fight the meta. And let me rephrase this. They had to fight the meta one more round. And that matters. That matters. Now, I know someone could say, hey, Dark Logos, they could have, faced so-and-so Yahoo with a Paradise and a Dream. Yeah, that's true, too. That's 100% true. But it's still clear to be stated that I think there's a good chunk of the matchups that just change to the point where I'm not trying to detract, but I clearly can see the impact of a bye being given at that level, at that stage. Now, the one thing that Adam Friedman did bring up to me is, should WizKids World Championship be an invitational? And the argument is with the current size of the game, the answer should be no. That the size of the game for our World Championship is on the equivalency of Magic the Gathering regional with the poor attendance. And when you think of it in that context, there is something to be said with that. Now, at the other end, we also have a level of analysis to say, okay, but things still have to matter for us. And I think being able to have WKO points or rock points being able to be used, getting you access to the event may be the only thing that should be allowed if we continue down this path. So that you're pre-qualified is the best way I can put it. But again, like I said, if we go back to Adam Friedman's logic, it's best to just sort of let everyone in. Then we come back, at the same time, is what good is WKOs, what good are, rock regionals and rock events. And I think that's something where we have to have a conversation about our integrated tournament system, which is what's more important for the community to figure out. More people in qualifying for Worlds, or less people qualifying for Worlds and it being a higher caliber tournament. Okay. And I think that's the big deal that we have to look at this stage. The next issue that I was going to, take time to sort of look at that came from Worlds this year is that when we got in the top 32, I think when I took my my initial data, it was surprising because I think I saw like six or seven Thanos. No, 6 Thanos. And I think about 10 or 11 apocalypses. And that was quite startling. And when you look at that data, what does that data tell you? Well, you can say, well, Apocalypse was obvious, and Thanos was easy to say, like, yeah, that was going to still go around. But the key matter is that when we look at the promotion of that tech, who are the main two individuals promoting that tech? And that's Daniel Powell and PJ Bolin. And when we examine that, when we're looking, going down at other teams, like I think we had four teams that were running good stuff, 2 teams that were running X-Men or X-Men derivative. We even had Sinister Six come in. What this tells us with our diversity of teams that broke, it also impacts, like going back to breaks. So when we look at Apocalypse is not a high-scoring team on average. While it is possible, but on average, it's not a high-scoring team. So where does that put it? Well, more than likely, most of the Apocalypses were in the 5-1 bracket with low points. Whereas with some of the Thanos matchups may have actually been forced into a wipe. But when we are looking at what are the most influential people in the game for high-level players, it's going to be PJ and Dan. Now, what does that mean for you, the average player? That means listening to PJ and Dan can get you a lot of results, but it can also tell you that a majority of high-level players trust what they say. And in doing so, if you are a counter meta player, you can listen to them and then start trying to deconstruct the perspectives that they have to create counter meta play. And I think that's going to be a bit more essential going forward, because this sort of leads into, from my perspective, a grand opening that the main path of meta has right now, which is how many voices are there that matter. Now, I know someone could say it's like, look at where the final round of the World Championship was Good Stuff versus X-Men. And I'm fully aware of it. But when we look at some of the commentary, and even with myself, some stuff I had leading up into the event, we really had this downplay on X-Men. We also had this downward pressure on Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four made top 8 and lost in top 8. We also had a few other like analysis points that weren't on a defensive-based Thanos, which Emily played, which I watched it being played, and I was just like, wow, that is really, really good in terms of barrier usage, but it also in and of itself has some key weaknesses. The most key weakness is that you have improved movement destroys blocking, and you're able to get that to affront Emily's position. She's completely exposed, and that creates a problem for her team. And you could say, yes, Thanos comes out and just punks you or mind controls you or does X, Y, or Z. But if you're able to solve for the outward display of Thanos, and your solution to dealing with barrier is not the soft, squishy molecule man, yeah, like the standard Dan team is a problem. But like going back to Emily, for example, Emily's style of play is clearly, or team is clearly influenced by the very well-designed team that Dan had. But her application of the barrier, of using the multiple squares of barrier to prevent mind control from being useful in 90% of the situations in a Thanos versus Thanos matchup, and being able to eke out points and then just barring for the rest of the turn, was a lot more methodical than most other individuals. And by far, she played the most defensive, and this is not necessarily being derogatory, but elegant game of Heroclix that I've watched in a while. Now, what does that mean going forward? Like that you're generating that much barrier. I think realistically, improved movement, destroys blocking, flyers are going to have a degree of advantage, because we don't have something that is, well, we do have stuff. We do have Jubilee, and we could just get Jubilee up there and wipe out a bunch of stuff. But what I learned from watching Emily was, you could have something that just wipes out a bunch of barrier squares, and that is fine. But can it survive against what Thanos is going to throw at it the next turn? You have one turn to score more than, your approach squad and your anti-barrier piece. If your anti-barrier piece goes down to Thanos, and you fail to deal with their multiple sources of barrier, I'm sorry, the fortress is going to go up and you just lost. And that is something to consider. Most players are not thinking on that level. A lot of it is just get the walls down and come in with the coming in with the full force. The idea that Molecule Man is good enough is probably, I have to be honest, very poor and inefficient tactical design once we're looking at the play style of Emily, because she just comes up and says, you have one chance, you're not going to convert, you have to kill my Molecule Man. That's going to be really hard when he is tied up in a bunch of barrier in the back. So you have to go full on commit, plus get line of fire to make that attack, which Thanos can't do with because he doesn't have improved targeting nor his characters unless he uses a mind control. And then you just surround him with characters that can't do enough damage to him. And then boom. There's very little that happens next. Molecule Man stays alive. Your opponent is stuck. The opposing Molecule Man is smoked. And there is very little that the opposing Thanos could do to try to punish the Molecule Man. To punish the opposing Thanos. That's what I mean. Without the opposing Thanos getting enough time to sort of moonwalk back, heal up, and just be like, all right, this is the song that doesn't end. And in this case, it's just barrier. So I think that's another very interesting thing. While many people will know that Dan was able to crap out a massive amount of barrier, how to utilize that barrier, I think most people didn't think how to utilize it outside of just this frontward facing wall. So shout outs to Emily on that, because that insight alone gave me some good hope for the future of defense. And things to look at when you do have the volume of barrier. What can you actually do? And I think that's something that we realistically haven't examined since the time of the Alan Scott Green Lanterns. Now, so I know most of you are saying it's like, okay, what else is there to unpack? And I think the key element of going forward is, while Apocalypse was very successful, and even the Apocalypse with Annihilation was very successful, I think going forward, I think that build will start to suffer. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I think folks are going to take time to digest the fact that that's a +5 theme, the way that it's run with Ruler, and then try to get higher themes. So be ready for +8s coming back and people figuring how to make viable +8s. Also, Spider-Man Family, while not appearing in top 32, if I'm correct, I may be wrong on that, has the opportunity to create situations with high quality figures, some level of swap utilizing Fantastic Four, and then comes and presents a high enough theme that it can be a problem for a lot of different teams. So that's something else to think about as well. And I think that may end up posing a threat in particular to some of the APOC teams. Now, I know some of you are going to be like, so Dark Logos, what did you run? Why did you run what you ran? And what does that mean? And I want to say, before I go any further, my team was run based off of 3 months of data and was composed in 3 weeks. There was a point in which I was not going to play singles. And the reason why was that I felt that Mad Jim Jaspers created a toxic meta, and that there were other events that would be more fun. I'm just being 100. And so, because of that, I walked away. Now, I had several several builds that I was thinking about, and seeing some of the variations there encouraged me that I was realistically on the right path. There was a lot of things that I was blind to because I didn't go back and ask myself, what level of risk am I willing to take on in addition to my main swaps. So there were some things that I can make the argument that could have been optimized or played better. But I did have to say at the end of the day, the main thing that I was trying to beat was Apocalypse. And my biggest failure was I did not practice beating Apocalypse with winning map. And I started from I lost map situation. And that by far was my biggest route of failure in my team design, in my map selection, and in my just overall play. So before I go forward, I like to state I had optimized the situation to win on Morlock tunnels with low points, but I did not have a play on taking Apocalypse somewhere else or being somewhere else against Apocalypse, and therein is the failure that I encountered. All right, so without further ado, this is my build. So it's Venom Magneto, which I borrowed, emotional modifier, Domino, Fast Forces Domino at 25 points. And I'm playing Venom Magneto at 35, of course. Cloak of Levitation, Professor X, Dazzler, Cape Pride, House of X, Cape Pride, and Rogue, House of X, Rogue, number 100, the prize support Rogue. Now, as you can sort of tell, that last one seems really weird, but this Rogue here is pretty much, for lack of a better word, my anti-Apocalypse figure. Now on the Morlock tunnels, this works a lot better because there are less lines of fire. And that's something that I just learned, is that with fewer lines of fire and fewer access, Death, while he is useful, has a lot more obstacles that he has to spend movement to get around. And so getting a line, a bead on Death, or even getting a bead on one of the Daemon Pogs, it's 11 on numbers on 17, needing a 6 to pop all their Pogs, and they're gone. And so knowing that is real useful because it gets around all of the variants. So let's say that you have Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor has spawned a Pog, and it's invincible, it's safeguarded, it can't be harmed. Well, you pop another Pog, and boom, the Lex Luthor Pogs are gone as well. So yeah, you don't have to have a line of fire, just poof, be gone, all your Pogs. So you can automatically see this allows you to reset a board and take the time to deal with stuff. Dazzler is transferring shield. Cape Pride is giving us Lockheed, which is really useful in some of our matchups. So let's go to our sideboard, since you know I'm already running Professor X, so you know the swaps are coming. All right, so we have the Destroyer. And in a Mad Jim Jasper's meta, I think Destroyer by far is one of the best tools to be royally annoying to 90% of the competitors. So there's Mad Jim Jasper's. The next is, there's Destroyer. If I had done some more research or done some more thinking, in all honesty, I would have gone with a different prime, and it wouldn't have been Bishop, okay, and it would have been Emperor Gladiator, because that 1-to-1 swap with Rogue would have offered me a ton of options in various other matchups that I was just struggling with, and may have even been worth it in my Thanos matchup. Even though my Thanos matchup, I pretty much had that solved with the 3 attackers that I had. But, that's something to think about. Because when we start like breaking down Emperor Gladiator, and this is something that I wasn't fully, thinking about at the time. So Emperor Gladiator has improved target destroys blocking, and that wouldn't have been insanely useful against like 80 squares of blocking. But there are situations where, I'm picking negative zone as one of my maps, so just taking a shot in some situations may just have been worth it. So, and he has props, so I have the option if I wanted to like swap out Domino. Anyway, let's go back. But overall, Destroyer did put in work. Then there is Emma Frost, the Rise and Fall super rare Emma Frost, which in my opinion is one of the most slept on, very highly effective figure. It is a really highly effective figure to the point where I would make the argument, if you're running X-Men and not running her in the current meta, you're just wrong. So why Emma? And I'm running her at 75 points. First and foremost, she has Mind Control. Second of all, she has Incapacitate. So those 2 cards all of a sudden just come back and wail. Those 2 powers wail on people because of the tarot cards that are in play. The other issue that I saw, which was a big deal, was that her improved targeting. She starts off with an improved targeting of your choice, which is 9 times out of 10 you're going to be using improved targeting, ignores blocking, or improved targeting ignores characters. You can give her your emotional modifier and pretty much guarantee that she can see all of your friendlies by making sure that on her first turn that she has improved targeting, ignores characters. And you can even pick improved target ignores blocking as well. Now this gives you a pretty much an absolute aura with emotional modifier. Now I know some people would say like, look, you would want something a little bit more mobile up in the front with your emotional modifier. Not in every matchup. You really don't. In a lot of situations, you realistically just want to make sure that Thanos cannot mind control your group, period. And she ensures that. So, yes, there are outwits and other shenanigans that can be done. I'm willing to admit that. But right now, for what she does, she is very cost efficient. So, with her 8 range and having access to shield and wild card, you take that up to 11. You're able to bump up her damage, and she kamehamehas for 4, 5, or 6, depending on how much you want to invest in that shot. And you can ignore characters and blocking, elevated, and characters, like whatever you want, and there is nothing your opponent is going to be able to do to stop that. And yeah, that's just rough what's coming their way. Unless they have some weird type of omniscient global prob or running mercy, they're going to get lit up, and she can outwit before she does that big huge attack, so it's going to go through. So Emma Frost is the second figure on my sideboard. Then of course there is the typical Jubilee. Don't really need to explain her. Multiple man is primarily so that I can get the swap in with my rogue / Emma Frost combo on my anti-apocalypse team. Unfortunately, I tried to get multiple man off the team for Legacy Magneto, which helps you in the Sarkarian Iron Man matchup, but I just couldn't get the math to work with the objects that I had. Next up is Hope Summers. Now, Hope Summers is really obvious, but for the uninitiated, the main thing is that she copies 2 powers from friendlies, and in a situation where I saw that my opponent did not have Molecule Man or Scarab, I took them to Negazone and did double barrier and just said sucks to suck. that's pretty much it. There is nothing that a team, let me rephrase it, there's very little that a team can do against double barrier or even alternating barrier on negative zone. So when you understand that, you can have you get a very slow methodical push. And when you have Venom Magneto, it makes things a lot easier because your barrier pieces can do whatever they want, and then you can just fly away and move into the fortified position. So that's something to think about. Like, you can constantly advance. So there are like the trade-off of knowing that you're running Hope is Hope and Deadpool are the mirror of each other. If you know you need to be a lot more defensive, then you're running Deadpool. If you know that your opponent can't just light you up from downtown or across the map, then you run Hope. Hope is going to increase your damage output significantly. And so I just recommend that overall. Then there is Legacy Banshee at 75 points. Yeah, like, he doesn't have a low dial. Now, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, cool, that's Banshee. And then later on it was like, oh, that's Banshee. And even for me, I sort of didn't like him initially. But when I came back and I started to see how he fit into current X-Men, I started to see how he worked really, really well. Now, in some of my loadouts, Banshee had the emotional modifier. So he has improved targeting, elevated hindering, and destroy blocking. And so what you end up doing is when you are on your Otherworld Castle, you are able to functionally just take shots indiscriminately against opponents. Just about indiscriminately, just due to his range. And you get close enough on a Thanos to make sure the 6 square effect is in place. And the most Thanos can do is reduce his 1. And he cannot use super senses. So yeah, like, automatically that play alone won me a game. And that leads me to, also he has PD, which is really useful when you're combining that with like Jubilee on Otherworld Castle. So yeah, like, he could pretty much see almost any target regardless of where they're at on the map. So yeah, like, Banshee and Jubilee combo, like 1-2 punching, that is great. Then that leads me into my man, Iceman. And Legacy Iceman is really powerful for a couple of reasons. The first is that once you give him the Cloak of Levitation, he shifts from being a ranged attacker primarily into a melee skirmisher lockdown. Okay? So what ends up happening, a lot of times people will be looking for you to make a running shot with Iceman because he has running shot, and not just think you can run through everybody and then make attack on a single target. Now, there are times where I would love to just be like, yeah, maximize damage and I'm doing 4 damage or 5 damage with a running shot. But the times that you do that, you're not going to get that second ice block token off because you're not close enough for the sidestep. And you don't want to dedicate a TK so that, you're running shot it through and then you get a free punch and then you get to sidestep through. Like, it's not worth it. It's better off for you to just accept that this is a stealthy, sneaky melee piece. That's the God honest truth. It's a stealthy, sneaky melee piece. And you can, with 2 targets, you could just be like, I'm next to you, I'm going to target these 2 targets. And that's going to be my melee attack. And then I'm going to sidestep through one of you. You can do that, or just move through a character, through some characters and make a punch, then sidestep through the same character again, and make sure you have your ice block on. Okay? Now, sidestepping is really big because this is how it goes of why you can lock down a Thanos. And why I was saying it's like if people explore X-Men, I don't think Thanos would have been a thing, even still. So here's how it goes. You you move. You go through Thanos. You make sure that Banshee is in position so there's no senses. You perplex up the attack to a 12. In some situations, you can get your attack up to a 13. So you move, and I am letting you know, since this is not hypersonic speed, you can carry a Peeper or carry a Cypher, whatever you want. Peeper is probably the best. So you move through, and then you make your first punch. Boom, boom. That's for 4. Okay? You're going to put an Ice Block token on Thanos, and then you're going to put a token on Thanos because you hit him. Then you're going to sidestep through him again. Boom, boom. Okay? Then you're hitting him again for 4. So you've hit him for 4 the first time, so he's taking 3. Then you're hitting him again for 4 again, so he's taking 3 because Banshee's making sure that he's only taking 1. He only can reduce down 1 damage, okay? So you've already done 6 damage to Thanos. Thanos has to dedicate all of his probs to trying to make it so that you can't hit. And when you're a 12 or a 13, it's really not in his favor at all because, again, you hit him for that first time for 3 damage. He's going to take 3. He's down to a 17 and you're a 12 or a 13. You hit him again for another 3 damage. That puts him on click 7. He's at a 14 defense. You're pretty much auto hitting at that stage. Okay. And so, while you might say you can't one turn a Thanos with Iceman, Thanos has to get Cosmic to take the ice block off, then get leadership from another source to take a second token off, take a first actual token off so that Thanos can attack. And at that stage, he's 12 for 2. So the only thing he has a real option with is mind control. I'll take it because there's a lot of things that has to go right for the Thanos player. Okay. And you can set up shots where Banshee kills the leadership, like that's adjacent. But in most situations, Thanos isn't going to have a leadership next to him. So all in all, like I knew Legacy Iceman was good. The issue that I failed at was in my initial designs a long time ago, a couple of months ago, was that I tried to make Iceman the team, where Iceman is a really good support. Like he's a very good secondary attacker. Okay. He is not the hero of your story. Okay. It's usually going to be Rogue, Emma, or Jubilee. Those are your heroes of the story. Your backup, like I couldn't done this without Chipro, are Iceman and Banshee. Now, some people may be wondering, okay, what are your maps? You said Negative Zone is one of your maps. Negative Zone is one of my maps. Otherworld Castle is my second map. And then, truth be told, due to how I practice, I should have put Morlock Tunnels as my third because I knew facing Apocalypse on that map. I knew how to beat Apocalypse on that map, but I didn't. And that was my big mistake, is I should have just stuck with the map that I know that I could win on and gain tempo on, instead of being like, well, that's their map and I don't want to take them to their best map. I want to go here. Where in all honesty, I knew I just needed to advance at a certain point, wait to get Emma lined up, take a shot, kill Venom Mags, potentially kill Matt Jim, reset the Pogs, and force Annihilation to come out. And if Annihilation doesn't come out, I win. Okay? Looking at the psychology, and this is also something I would say, is looking at the psychology of the field versus looking at how I practiced against or played as or seeing my teammates play Annihilation Apocalypse. I have to be 100.
I played, and this is not shade, my practice Annihilation Apocalypse was a lot more difficult because from my teammates' perspectives, we saw there are times that Annihilation has to get in. What I saw with Annihilation Apocalypse was very strong Pog and Scarab dependent. Okay. And understanding that was huge. Understanding that was huge. So anyway, so that's my team. And I'm going to leave you with some notes on my observations on X-Men. First and foremost, I think high themed X-Men, like 7th X-Men, is going to start hitting its limit because a lot of core figures that you need are in that 67-70 range. You can go with the double maggot play like Lucas did for Nats and Isaac did at Worlds. And it is really good. It is really, really good. I, on the other hand, resolved not to play that way, primarily because my way of solving for the Apocalypse problem was, and my Thanos problem was range. So for me to commit a good chunk of my force to a melee situation, which I really didn't have, felt like I was, for lack of a better term, like I was splitting myself in two. I couldn't do a ranged game effectively, and I couldn't have my certain options that were good for very specific matchups that I knew that I was going to see, and also run double maggot. Okay. And there's nothing, this isn't a slight against double maggot. I think double maggot is very, very good. I mean, heck, it's in the finals of Worlds. But I do think double maggot forces you to be in a melee situation, which is not as easy to deal with if you lose map with X-Men. Now, I know you're going to say, it's like, well, there is, of course, like you brought up Dark Logos, there is Emma, you know, and that is true. But again, the support for Emma is a different story once you go into double maggot. Now, again, for a lot of you all, you could say, like, I really do not like this road play here, Dark Logos. This could have been blankety blank. And I have no disagreement. My local told me about this. I thought it was a good play, and I felt that I could make it work, and I did. So there you go. Okay. Let's keep going on. You might be saying, hey man, you don't have any tarot cards. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't. But you know, one thing that I learned about tarot cards, not playing tarot cards against people that were playing tarot cards, slows this game down. It slows the game down a lot. Most people are running about the same tarot cards, which means that when people are practicing, things are a lot more ramped up because there are 2 tarot cards in effect, which allows for, in a lot of situations, a lot of silly combos or silly effects that normally would never happen in Heroclix. Okay. But when you have one deck in play and there is one card in play, the amount of complication, while it's still high, it tones it down, and some of these effects start to come back and bite the opponent. And that's sort of the key thing, is there are a lot of different offenses and defenses that work because there are 2 or more overlapping tarot cards. That makes it so that there are 2 to 4 turns of a type of offense. Okay? That there's a type of offensive pressure that both players have played for, and that they're ready to pop off at that moment. Okay. And being aware of that, hey, this is the offense that is being planned for. Your targets change. Like the core engines of a team completely change. And there are certain risks that start to go away. Like risk number one, I need X card to show up, and it shows up on turn one. Well, your opponent has that card. There's a chance that you can still see that card. So a certain amount of disadvantage starts going away. The other issue I've seen, just personally, not playing tarot cards against opponents that are, is round 5 and 6, I have a lot more mental energy because I haven't been keeping up with an additional game element, which is flip a card. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, that's silly, Dark Locust, but I'm going to be honest. Game 4 through 6, multiple times my opponent forgot that the first thing in their turn was to flip a tarot card. And I'm playing world caliber players. And I'm not just saying that lightly. I pretty much knew almost every person that I played. These aren't like new people. These are usual suspects. So for the amount of mental fatigue to take place that it did, I think that tarot cards are really, really bad for the first tournament that we've come back to. Okay, because we are not disciplined enough to run them. All right, so let's start moving on, and I'm gonna sort of try to go into side events. I'm just going to be honest and tell you, the Silver Age event was ridiculous, and for it to be a Thursday event and the level of complication it has, I would tell you, if you're going to play Silver, make sure you're there and well rested. Don't play Silver and you just drove in, 10 hours. It's not a good look. I sort of dealt with that. And my teammates were like, you need to go do a qualifier. And I was like, yeah, I need to go do a qualifier instead of Silver. But initially, I had a plan on doing Silver, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, and Popper. And those were going to be my main events. But, as you say, things change. And if you are going to be a leader of one of the best teams in Heroclix, you got to go to war. When they're like, Captain, you got to go out there and fight the hordes. And I'm like, but the castle is so nice. I was planning on doing a side pillage. Like, I was going to root for y'all and I was going to give some tactical support, but I was going to do a side pillage. And then that spear hits you back and it's like, Captain, the enemy is out there. You need to go face the horde like the rest of us. And then you're like, yeah, I need to face the enemy like the rest of y'all. You put your helmet on, and you don't have a David and Bathsheba moment, but still, it reminds you like, yo, this is how brutal these streets are when you're playing Heroclix. So, yeah, going into my observation for Silver for a lot of people was just slap ID cards on it. From what I saw in general, I don't think that was a good play. Lucas sort of proved that a lot of older game elements are just more gangster and will wreck you. So knowing that, I think straight up, like Silver going forward is going to be a lot rougher. Okay, it's going to be a lot rougher. just in fact of adding tarot cards into Silver, and then also allowing for ID cards in Silver, which is a huge mistake because Leech exists. There you go. Leech legacy card existing is probably one of the biggest problems for Silver Age, because any retail can call in that card and then just blank X amount of dials and set up I would argue, the most vicious counterattack that you have ever seen. Being 100. All right, let's go. Tinker Tailor. It was delayed, but I was busy doing team stuff, so I was busy winning, so I did not care. We'll talk about that later. So I couldn't get in on that event, so I have no commentary. But I would tell you, I pretty much bet there was a ton of Sakarian Ironmans. Just betting. Then going into Pauper. Now, Pauper was capped at 16 because this was run on Sunday. My Pauper team, I'm going to keep on lock, because if Pauper is run on as an event, I need every advantage I can because my team was fire. But I will say this, my team is low scoring. And because my team is low scoring, it faced a multitude of challenges in which led to failure. And I would make the argument that if you are going to do Pauper, focus on getting as many points as possible, because and being able to win, because that is what the focus is. If you are a low point winner, it's not possible for you to win that event. Okay. So there is no break. There is no out round. There is no final round. None of that. It is just boom. Whoever has the most points and the most wins at the end of 3 rounds wins. So there you go. When it comes to team event, shifting gears, I felt good on the weekend. I had 4 teams of Phoenix Nest members inside of top 16. When you are a quarter of team finals, that feels good. And as folks will be like, there's so many of y'all, of course you're there. And I'm like, first and foremost, there are other organizations running multiple teams. How many teams did they get in there? Now it starts to get quiet and the crickets come out. Okay. It's like this isn't the first time. You can't say it's an anomaly. Well, Phoenix Nest has it doesn't matter. Like as it says, The Rock says, it doesn't matter what your name is. Anyway, but when we had a team get eliminated at top 16, my team unfortunately got eliminated in top 8. We had another one of our teams get eliminated in top 4 because we played each other, and of course we had a team in the finals. And unfortunately, we lost in the finals, but it's still good. Some folks said, like, how do you feel? And I'm like, look, dude, as a team captain, if someone said, yeah, your entire team but one person got paid. We all got swagged. And, off of doing well in one core event, how would you feel? I'd be like, I feel great. I feel great. And that's what happened. My entire team got swagged. Okay. So a lot of times people will lose perspective and they'll be like, hey, you didn't win. And I'm like, yeah, you can't win it all the time. You can't win it all the time. You can do well. And consistently doing well and proving that you can consistently do well, regardless what your lineup is a mark of excellence. If folks were been like, you needed this person and that person, I'm like, look, I have rotated out of team partners, multiple times. If someone wants to come back and be like, Dark Logos, you suck, and I'm be like, Let me see your team history. Throw down your team history from the last, 8 years. Or since when the event started. Because from the very beginning, homie, I was there. I was top 4 at the first team event. And the only time I never broke in teams, I was coaching. The worst I have ever done in teams is top 16. I mean, as folks say, like, you want to put shade on my name, I will be the sun. Okay? When it comes to being in teams, I am one of the number 1 players, and I'm one of the top 3 players in the world. I will even shoot out one of the members of Fail Boat to say how consistent I am. Okay? So I've been in how many finals? I've won Team Clicks Cup. I've won the Team Clicks Cup. And they'll be like, you had so-and-so boosting you and so-and-so boosting. I'm like, no, I have not. I have performed well with great players that have been developed in the system that we have. So there you go. It's like, oh, you already had PJ. Didn't have PJ this time. Oh, you had Lucas. I didn't have Lucas this time. Still here. I had Isaac Danke, who was a great player, and he won and constructed teams for Rock. Is that getting boosted? I don't think so. I have Wes Summers on my team. Is that getting boosted? Oh, but I had Kevin Nelson, who also got second in teams before, but nobody was thinking about Kevin or shouting out his name. Okay. I've had KJ, who didn't win a darn game, and myself and PJ pretty much took our entire team to top 4. So at some point in time, one has to say, it's not luck. It's skill. It's skill. So I was there when the Deep Magic was formed for teams, and it is ingrained in me. So there you go. But I would make the breakdown of having a brick to work with allows for consistency. It allows for, I know some people will always say there's a lot better bricks that you could pull, but you start learning there's bricks that you want for your collection and bricks that you want for sealed. And we pulled a brick that we wanted for sealed and it was real good. So there's that. I think once people, now that a brick is sort of the standard, I don't see people going away from a brick. I see a brick being standard from here on out, and I think that's justifiable. So, yeah. So, all in all, I think it's a good weekend. I think there's a lot of things for us to talk about, a lot of things for us to think about, and I think the biggest thing, as you as a competitive player, waiting for Clicks Cup in January or any other major event, your next major event may be WKOs if they come back out, or nationals next year. The thing that I would tell you is what are you going to do to rest right now? Resting is going to be real important. The next thing is, how are you going to retool? What do you need to add from your arsenal? What do you need to take away? I will be honest, there's a lot of skills that really aren't useful anymore. And I think once we understand that they're not that useful, depending on your outlook, I think there's some points of change that's going to happen. The new rules change, potential rules change that's coming about figures starting equipped, that's going to completely change turn 1. It's completely going to change turn 1. And once turn 1 is more about getting into the action and deploying, and it's not about equipping, I do believe we are going to see the most aggressive era of Heroclix that we've ever seen. Like the most aggressive era of Heroclix that we've ever seen. And because of that, that leads me to believe that a lot of things that people have based team building around for the last 4 or 5 years, actually, I think about 5 years, is going to go away. Making sure that you have the TK tricks, the sidestep tricks to equip, making sure that you're able to trick, objects and whatnot. I think a lot of that is going away. Swap teams will be at a mild disadvantage because if they want to swap out people with equipment, they will have to take actions to equip. And so you may end up noticing teams that are focused on swap will not have their core members equipped. And I think that's going to be very, very interesting. I know some folks be like, blasphemy, but I mean, this is me sort of, not necessarily, this is me semi-prophesying from my bones, a lot less from my stomach, but like realistically think about it. If you have a core figure on your team and turn 2 they need to be engaged and potentially on turn 3 and they don't have cosmic, do you want to spend one of their actions to equip praying for a leadership for 2 turns? Like, no, you don't. So that means that they either, if your side elements or your core elements that may be interchangeable, that means that they're more than likely not going to be equipped. Because whatever you bring in needs to act immediately or set up for your defense. And you couldn't do that if you take that action to equip unless you have some other level of shenanigan. So it's rough. But I see that as the future, that, once you're swapping out characters and they're dropping their equipment, you paid for, you started with a level of convenience because you're not paying for it starting with equip. And now you forfeited that to try to maximize your matchup. So yeah, like that's rough. So I realistically have to say, like, retooling, rethinking about stuff that's going to be important in the future. I think that's going to be necessary right now. I think anybody that's like, yeah, I could just keep playing the way that I've been playing. No, you can't. I think also we are at a point right now, due to the amount of game elements on the field, that we have skill blocked out a lot of players just off of capacity. There are more players. You can make the argument, well, they got old. I'm like, dudes aren't old. Be like, they've been playing for a while. They're not old. And even some people that are, I would make the argument, sub 35 were stating some of the same problems that I personally have been experienced lately. There's just too much stuff to keep track of. So just breaking down a typical Apocalypse team, not even an X-Men team that has its own level of freaking silliness. Okay. I'm keeping track of my tarot deck. That's 1. My opponent's tarot deck. That's 2. My objects. That is 3. My objects that I can swap, that is 4. The number of objects that I have actively in play, that's 5. Then what Scarab is copying, that's 6. Which POG am I generating with Apocalypse? So that's 7. What is the play with that POG? That is 8. Then what am I doing with the Daemon POGs? That's 9. Equipment or any other shenanigans that I'm trying to do with Scarab from objects or drawing lines of fire, that's 10. That's 10 right there. And I'm just talking about one team and an opponent's tarot deck. Okay. Previously, I would argue what I would call puppeteering, being able to manage 8 to about 12 game elements was a high skill threshold that most players don't reach. And we're talking about 10 just on your team. If I go through, let's go through X-Men real quick. You have, starting off, what swap of which number of X swaps are you going to? That's number one. That in and of itself, I can load up to being one decision or one element to up to 6 elements right there. Item equipment. So let's just say that's just one. Item equipment, that's 2. Okay. Map selection, that's 3. Deploy, that's 4. And then you can say if there's POG generation or not. Let's say there isn't POG generation. So we're at 4. Then what we're going to do is just say object maximization. So that puts us at 5. Lines of fire and deploy with my carry, that's 6. Okay. There are more complicated X-Men teams that you can do. You can start acting like, here's my shield, here is my enhancement and power. So that would put you up to 8. Improved targeting because you're using Emma. And my negation deploy, that would be 10. Managing my pogs with maggots, that can be 11. The amount of mental strain that our games are going under is intense. And I noticed it playing Pauper. While I was playing Pauper, I knew everything that was going on real quick. My decisions were more tactical, not trying to keep up with everything on the field. And while all those things that I talked about bring complexity, they don't necessarily, they're not bringing a better game experience. And they're clogging up the mental bufferage that is the human mind. We're not StarCraft 2 players here. We're normal people for a majority of us. And so keeping track of all these game elements, I inevitably have to be honest. One or two of these core elements that I brought up have to go for the accessibility of the player base. I just don't know which ones. So I feel tarot cards is probably the best. And following up is maybe even some general rules on pogs or something. I don't know. So, that's it for the show. Overall, I really enjoyed Worlds. I had a lot of healthy conversations with WizKids employees about the game and the future of the game. I think there is a lot more positive going on, and hearing what those positive things that they're working on is really encouraging. And most importantly, I feel like there is a healthier future coming. I do think that the the equipment change is the best thing that they can do. I also believe that the terrain changes potentially can be very, very good or very, very disruptive. So I'm lost right now on where that is. I have to see how that plays out. I do believe like the first gen of them will be either extremely broken or not effective. But Gen 3 of those things are going to displace maps, extremely displace maps. So I want to see what happens, but still, all in all, like I said, a overall positive event that I've had. And so I'd like to thank my teammates that have been very patient with me. I'd like to thank you, the listeners, and especially the listener that came back and said, like, yo, man, I listened to your Worlds prep talk like 5 times. That meant the world to me, that somebody listened. And I was able to do a pep talk for my team. And there was one thing that I would love to share with you viewers, and mindset of winning. 83 wins. 83 wins Phoenix Nest had with our current active members, not including the ones that left. 83 wins. Event wins. That's first place only. That's not counting us eliminating each other. That's not counting our second places or our fourth places or our top 8s or our top 16s. 83 event wins. 3 years. How many other teams can say that? How many other teams can say that they've won 83 events? How many other teams can say that they've interacted in that many events? Not many. Only one, I think. And that's us. So, anyway, that's it for today's show. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.